I'm Mick Garris, and I'd like to welcome you once again to the Fantasy Film Festival. We're starting a special series of high-budget science fiction spectaculars, and we're kicking it off tonight with one of America's favorite legends, the story of Superman, Superman the movie. Superman's had an interesting background. The first appearance of Superman was in Action Comics in 1938. Then there was the radio show with Bud Collyer. And actually, the first feature film was in 1951, Superman versus the Mole Men, which later was cut into the first 3 episodes of the TV series starring George Reeves. With us today in the studio, we're lucky to have a talented actor and director who plays Perry White in the new film we'll be seeing shortly, Jackie Cooper. Thanks for being here, Jackie.
Nick, good to see you.
You weren't involved in Superman at the very beginning. You came in late, isn't that right?
Right. Keenan Wynn was cast as Perry White originally, and when it was time for Keenan's role in the picture to commence in the newspaper office, all the Perry White stuff takes place in the newspaper office. About a month of production on both pictures was planned. Keenan had been making a picture in Africa, before which he'd been making a picture in the States. He flew all the way up from South Africa to London on something like a Thursday. He got there Friday, got on the set. He was totally exhausted, began to hyperventilate. A lot of people thought he was having a heart attack, which they found out is not true. And but Keenan and everybody was pretty frightened about it, and of course the picture had to go forward. Spending a lot of what you've heard is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I got a call on a Friday to leave. Could I leave that night?
Oh.
And I couldn't leave that night. First of all, I had to find my passport, you know. And
literally
anyway,
the last minute.
Yeah, I got there on a Sunday and began shooting on Monday, and it was a very pleasant experience for me because it was the first so-called big picture I had been in really since I was a kid. I've acted a lot in television and sort of cameoed in a couple of features since World War II, and made a couple of little B pictures that weren't very good right after World War II, but I hadn't been in anything like this since Ziegfeld Girl in 1941,
right.
You know, or Treasure Island in 1935, I think it was.
And this is one of the biggest films of all time. It's a huge budget picture. Now, you didn't have much time to prepare for your role. What did you draw from as Perry White?
Well, I was familiar with the comic strip as a kid, of course, and in later years, as a camp, I mean, like some older people still look at the Little Rascals. I looked at a lot of the Superman on television, and with George Reeves, wasn't it?
Yes.
And then when I got there, Donner had on Sunday he had a lot of the comic strip stuff. Of course, I had read the script all night when I got there, and then he gave me a lot of the comic strip. Just to look at for character kinds of things the guy did and this and that, and smoking the cigar,
right.
And
very bombastic
jumping
role,
Jehoshaphat's, and no nonsense, tough newspaper editor.
Great Caesar's ghost.
Yeah,
that's the best line.
and so we drew from a lot of that stuff because, oddly enough, the script had forgotten some of the mannerisms of Perry White and some of those things, you know, Great Caesar's ghost and stuff like that. So we found them and got them in there, and it was just a very pleasant experience for me.
Now, at the time, it was an unusual thing. The film and its sequel, or much of the sequel, were shot at the same time. Was everyone aware of that?
Yes, yes. This was not like the 3 and 4 Musketeer experience. The producers learned from that. And everybody was bought for 2 pictures. You were handed Superman 1 and 2 when you got there, the 2 scripts.
Now, Superman 2 is opening right about now in Europe, but you've not seen the film yet.
No, I haven't seen a foot of it. I understand for some reason they're saving it for the summer over here, I guess, for the kids to get out of school and this kind of thing.
More matinee business.
Yeah. I would think the same thing in Europe. Aren't the kids going to school in the same months over there? Because it's, I really, except for curiosity or those adults who bring their children to it, I really don't think either film is a so-called adult film.
Right. You're also committed for a couple more after this, is that right?
They have an option on me for 2 more, and I haven't been acting, except for Superman, I haven't acted since, I don't know, Police Story, I think in 1976 was about the last thing I did, because I've been leaning towards a director's career most of my life, and I started directing in summer theater in 1948
Is that right?
in the East Coast, and in live television in 49 and 52, 53. And I'm lost.
All right, we'll continue
What
here.
did you say?
Well, the most remarkable thing, this touches on what I wanted to talk about next, about your career, is the longevity of it. You started out, the first thing I know about is the Our Gang comedies in 1927 and 28 you did. In 1931 you did The Champ, and you became a huge star. As a small child you were merchandised as a product. Your picture was on books, there were Jackie Cooper dolls and things, toys. Watches.
Yeah.
How does a 6-year-old, 8-year-old kid deal with that?
Well, it really isn't difficult on the 6 or the 8-year-old till a little later on in life. It's all, most of it's a lot of fun, and parents, loving parents, obviously try to make up for that work that you have to do that maybe you don't want to do, or that getting dressed up to go here or be seen there, or be nice to this newspaper person, or whatever it is. It really, that kind of takes its toll a little later on, when a kid's social life is more important to him, say 12 to 14 years old, and finds it's very hard to mix with the other kids. Consequently, you're mixing with professional kids, still delaying this getting out in the world. You're mixing with other kids who've also been isolated most of their life. And eventually, it happens to some kids at 12, some at 18, some at 20, 16. Eventually you get out there and start to find out there's another whole world out there. It happened to me when World War II came along, and eventually I had to go into service, and I went in the Navy, and I found out I wasn't a regular person at all.
Right.
And there's a lot of regular people out there, and it's not easy to get along with them.
It seems to me, as a child star, you would be encouraged to be cute and cuddly and young, and retard your emotional growth somewhat.
Particularly as an actor, yes, particularly as an actor. I found I was embarrassed a lot of times when I'd be 16 years old, let's say, and a fine director like Edmund Goulding would quietly say to me, "You're whining, you know, you're not, grow up now, you want, this is leading man stuff, you know."
Right.
And oh boy, that'd make you feel great, you know. But it was embarrassing to be reminded that most directors, particularly under the old star contract system, what you did is what they wanted you to do. Whether you were a boy or you were Gable, they didn't want you trying to do anything else. That's what you did, and they did it. You did it as long as it made money, and then if it didn't, they just dropped you.
Now, you were able to make this transition through the teen years. You successful little film called 17, the Booth Tarkington story. Yeah. That's an age that child stars are normally not able to continue through, and on into adulthood. Why were you able to, and so many of your peers not?
Well, I remember an expression called the awkward age at that time.
Right.
And fortunately, they had never filmed the awkward age. One of the reasons I was dropped at Metro was that I was coming into the awkward age. I was 13, and L.B. Mayer didn't like, you know, kids in short pants with hair on their legs, and he thought of adolescence as you know, pimples, and
right.
He thought it revolted the public. Mm-hmm. But Mickey Rooney was kept there because Mick was a sort of a bit player at the time, and we had done a picture. As a matter of fact, Freddie Bartholomew, Mickey Rooney, and myself had done a picture called The Devil is a Sissy, and it wasn't released at the time. Metro let both Bartholomew and me go. And they kept Mick, and the picture started to make money. So Mickey started to get better opportunities over there. Right. And of course, independently then, within the following year, I did too. The awkward age, there was some place for it to go, and Puppy Love and all of this was some means for entertainment, you know.
Well, I know that your family right now is a very closely knit family, mm-hmm. and I can only assume that your childhood was similar to that to help you through what might be a fairly trying time, what proved to be a trying time for some of your peers who had trouble with drugs and various other problems.
Well, we don't, the child prodigy has a bad record. Most of us are gone or in jail or sick or hiding someplace or working as male nurses in retirement homes or something. A few have gotten by. Mickey Rooney is a man of particular energy and stamina and bounces back like nobody you've ever seen. Mickey's made it, and of course made it recently very big. Mickey had kind of a dry spell for several years.
Black Stallion certainly brought him,
and that helped him. But Sugar Babies is just a fantastic hit. I mean, the rest of the country hasn't begun to see what this man is really capable of. He's never had the opportunities in any one particular film, even the old musicals he did with Judy.
Now we're going full circle with Mickey Rooney. You're going to be directing him.
Yeah,
is that
I'm preparing a picture now to star Mickey to go on next fall on the network. It's a beautiful drama with some humor in it. He plays an old clown who ought to get out of the business, and he just doesn't want to. His life is devoted to children. He's not a big, successful professional clown. He's just he works in a big city and hardly feeds his family with just working with children, constantly working with children and taking in children off the street. And just over, one of the things we say early in the picture, over his life with his wife, over 25 years, they've raised 34 children.
Right. Well, you've done a lot of things that have been cyclical. Probably your most interesting directing project recently was Rainbow, the story of Judy Garland, and you and she were very close.
Yeah, the story of Judy up to about 17. After that, most people knew the story, and that part of the book up to there was the most interesting. The rest of it the public could take for granted. That's when Over the Rainbow came along and all of that, and she really took off after that. Yeah, it was fun in a way because I was there as a kid, around the lot with Judy, and as she was just beginning to become known, and had the unique experience of directing one of the characters in the picture called Jackie Cooper.
Right. That must have been both fun and maybe a little unusual. Was it a little spooky to direct someone playing yourself?
Well, the only thing once in a while was there would be a moment and some dialogue. I'd worked with John McGreevy, the writer, a little bit on what actually took place here and there and what actually was said. And so I'd hear these words coming out of these kids' mouths, and it didn't mean as much to them as, of course, as it did to me. And I had to be very careful not to be too subjective, you know, and a grumpy old man wanting it just exactly the way it was, but rather what was good for these actors, you know.
Are you a demanding director?
Well, I'd like to think so. That sounds like somebody who makes a lot of noise and stamps his foot.
Perry White directing, right?
Yeah. No, not in that way, I'm not. I think actors like to be directed by me because I'm understanding, having been there. I'm also, I think, pretty aware technically about our business, and but I know what I want by the time the picture starts, absolutely. I'm ready for somebody to bring something else to it. The actor must bring something else to it. But in general, particularly because of, in television productions, the amount of money and the amount of time that we have, we've got to be very well prepared. So yes, I'm demanding in that area of my crew and of the actors.
We just have a few moments left, and I'd like to get back to Superman for a second. Why do you think Superman's popularity has been so long-lasting? What's the appeal of this American legend, do you think?
Something that I hope will always be with the youth of our country, and that is somebody who represents, as he says in a very camp way, the real good old-fashioned American way, some tradition, in spite of all the violence and the problems with drugs and a lot of terrible things. I think that there is deep inside all of us, and a lot of teenagers go see Superman. I think, and we'll see Superman too. I think just subconsciously, the youth wishes there were somebody like that to lead them, to believe in. And I hope one of these days this country has somebody like that.
Right. Well, let's see if you will believe a man can fly. Jackie Cooper, thanks for being with us.
Exactly.
And stay tuned to watch Superman the movie. Thank you.
Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5,